Thank you very much, and thanks for being here. I'm a really big fan of breaking things down into the who, the what, and the why of things, and then looking at the how. So what I'll do is talk to you about what Nowness is, why we do what we do, and then expand on how we actually do that. So essentially, it's the Nowness strategy behind the business. But first of all, who am I? I'm Anna Higgs. I'm Creative Director at Nowness. I've been at Nowness since the beginning of January, and before that, I was a commissioner and head of digital at Film 4, and before that, an independent film producer. I worked on projects such as 20,000 Days on Earth, Ben Wheatley's High Rise, and Lenny Abramson's film Frank. So first of all, what are we at Nowness? We are a global video channel screening the best in culture, essentially. It's really, really simple, but much more complex behind the scenes. Our unique programming strategy is established as a go-to source for inspiration and influence, and our curatorial expertise has won us loads of awards. That's because I think we work with exceptional talent, both emerging and established filmmakers who connect with our audience in emotional stories that are designed to provoke inspiration and debate. We are a movement for creative excellence in storytelling, as Torsten mentioned. So rather than me talk about what that looks like, here's a little example of what we do.
It's like when you see a woman across the street and you can't quite make out everything that's working across her, and then you see the full outfit, like the full effect, when she's radiating out to the world, and it's like so satisfying. It looks great. And you just have that moment together.
I generally feel like a creep because I'll be watching someone and then I'll feel like they think I'm checking them out, and I usually kind of am, because like the fashion does attract me.
I like that feeling of putting on a character as well. You know, somewhere I'm in a Fassbinder film in my head, walking around Germany.
And I don't want other people to think I think about it too much either.
Yeah, you don't want them to look like you're trying to.
No. Brutal.
I sometimes find it more satisfying for a girl to check me out than a guy to check me out.
In more recent years, I've started to just smile at people because I realize like the power of smiling at another
When I was younger, I was always mistaken for a boy. So I thought if I put the red lipstick on,
I wore like Versace pants, these like white Versace pants. To try to make me feel safe in my early 20s.
I wondered if I could pull off that kind of unabashed way.
she thinks the culture's so hostile that it's stolen like our ability to look at each other a lot of the time. So I think to kind of take that back and to smile and not feel like there's something wrong with me admiring the way someone looks in their skin and in their clothes is really beautiful.
So hopefully you can see that we really try to celebrate the extraordinary of every day. On the surface, that might be a film about the clothes women wear on the street, but really that's a film about how women look at other women on the street, and that's what we ended up calling the film. So we approach all of the films that we make with a set of core values, and just to quickly run through them, those are creativity, excellence, authenticity, inspiration, innovation, and daring. And all of these images that you see, by the way, are stills from the films that we've made for the channel. And because we do that well, we have a really highly engaged audience made up of cultural influencers and opinion formers, of the culturally curious, we like to call them, and also a very international and interconnected community. To share a little bit of our behind-the-scenes data with you, the average film on the site is 4 minutes long. and that we also have a 65% completion rate, which is pretty stellar when you consider that Facebook's completion rate for video is about 20%. That means that in the films that we have on the site, the audience are staying engaged for an average of 2 minutes and 41 seconds, in a space where more than half the video views on Facebook are below 3 seconds. And I flag this because for me, it's the audience are the key today. It's the audience that takes us to the why of what Nowness does. Because as you've seen in those values above, I believe we can inspire and change people through brilliant storytelling. It's why I go to work in the morning. And at Nowness, I think we've got a really compelling offering for our commissions and for our branded content partnerships because we do things differently. And why do we do things differently? Because we don't live in a world where if you build it, they will come anymore. And it's really interesting that still I've seen many makers, many channels, and many financiers lose their way in what I see as a set of prevalent myths of the digital age that I'd just love to run through for you. The first is that attention spans are diminishing. They are changing, and they're expanding in their scope, but they're not diminishing wholesale. So while we're in a time of the rise of Snapchat, we also have the phrase binge watching entering the Oxford English Dictionary. The second is interaction. I don't think that data tells us, or even actually qualitative experience tells us, that the audience want to interact with absolutely everything. Digital doesn't equal the death of the author, the filmmaker, or the storyteller, but audiences do now have access to all sorts of brilliant storytelling in all corners of the experience economy. So we've got to be really, really good at the storytelling that we do to break through. The third myth for me is that data is the answer to everything. And data is certainly incredibly valuable, but data tends to tell us the what our audience are doing and not the why they are doing it. And I'll talk about more of what this means for me in a moment. Because the fourth area that's really useful to challenge, I think, for me is the sense of futurologists predicting what's coming next with real certainty. Technological changes tend to take hold in all sorts of different ways on all sorts of different timescales. And these changes often take a lot longer to establish themselves or to find their true function than we'd originally thought. And if, after all, if I'd have believed the Lumiere brothers, who invented cinema, who predicted that cinema is an invention with no future, I would not be standing here with you today. So that leads me to the how we do what we do at Nowness. Understanding the landscape, bearing in mind those myths, we can move forward into that space. So Nowness is a .com channel, but we also work just as much, if not more, in a distributed media landscape. Again, rather than talk about this, I would love to show you another example of how we work in this space.
It's fucking beautiful, you know. Warm and beautiful aesthetically. You know, comfortably too, sure, but you know what? I have chairs all over the house that I won't let anybody sit in. I said, don't sit in that chair. I said, but it's a chair. No, that's not a chair, it's a work of art. You know? My name is George Lois. I'm a graphic communicator. This is my apartment in Manhattan, in the best part of Manhattan, Greenwich Village. Walt Frazier, Rick Barry, Bob Pettit, Bob Cousy, Bill Bradley. If you know anything about basketball, you sit and you say, how the fuck did you get that ball? My most prized, but my wife, if you can call it possession. No, she owns me, so look how beautiful. You know, I was kind of a stud too, you know. We live with what we love, you know. The more the merrier. I mean, the more beautiful things, the merrier. It's kind of a little bit of a disease, but it's a wonderful disease to have. That's a Carlo Molino table. Carlo Molino. When Greeks come to visit me, I just... you have to have the good eye, you know. So it's not just a question of seeing something, and that's beautiful. It's a question of seeing it and trying to understand the history of 7,000 years of art. You've got to understand, most people in America think the world is only 5,000 years old. I literally have 10 9,000 fucking books in this apartment. And I read 9,999 of them, trying to figure out the one I didn't read. Mom was posing. We're 20 feet away. And, we had wires hanging because this was before, Photoshop. And he said, "Hey, George." And slowly but surely, he pointed to each arrow and named a tormentor. Lyndon Johnson, General Westmoreland, Robert McNamara, Hubert Humphrey. It was amazing, it was amazing. Here's a photograph taken by Andy Warhol. I was eating with a French designer by the name of Jean-Paul Goudet, very important designer. He was looking at me and Jean-Paul Goudet, and he said, "Oh, you're both so good looking." The apartment, as a piece of space, is grandiose. It's the museum of great art, And I'm talking about great art. I'm not talking about the Pollocks or the bullshit of the world. I'm talking about great humanistic art, This bed served us well for 52 years. I mean, if you ever met a one-woman man, it's me. I'm proud of it. Honey, we can hear you. Rosie girl, we can hear you. I don't want anything, honey. We can hear you.
Isn't he great? He's allegedly the man that Don Draper in Mad Men was based on, apart from the very, very loyal relationship he has with his wife, obviously. But as short-form video content becomes a central focus of this media age, making really highly authored, very creatively led content, for me, doesn't mean you can stop listening to your audience. And I really firmly believe this journey requires us to follow a treasure map rather than a road atlas. It's a journey of deliberate discovery rather than a prescriptive route that we all need to follow. So by shaping these visionary strategies, we've been able to define a really distinct offering in the marketplace. And I thought it might be useful to share the elements of that vision with you. So the first is that we develop a closer relationship with our audiences. If you want to inspire and change, you have to think about being in a conversation with your audience. It's a two-way dynamic. Audiences want to be heard and responded to properly. They'll follow what they love loyally, but they'll also shoot down what they don't like. To me, this is an unparalleled opportunity, but it means you can't just broadcast to your audience, you have to be with them and for them. Because I'd argue that in this new age, you can't answer audience problems with industry issues. My audience doesn't care that Facebook has changed its algorithm, so it means that I have to adapt the way that I speak to them. They just want me to speak to them in really great ways. So to develop closer relationships with our audience, we do look at the data, but we always work with our commissioning strategy, our creative strategy first, and we do that in a number of ways. The first is that we commission into series, and by working in series and strands, we build a world for our audiences through relevancy and frequency. We're making what BuzzFeed's Zafrank calls consumable media. It's high-end, artistically led, ambitious films. And consumable media for him belongs in the garden. It's a place of immersion and of losing yourself. So, for example, the cinema is a peak or a pinnacle of consumable media. We also experiment. We work with visionary creators in front of and behind the camera, and so we, as much as our audience, look to expect the unexpected. We give bold new talent a break, and we give established talent a place to play. And although our films strive to be an immersive experience, we do embrace the reality of working in the stream, the other side of that garden. The stream, in contrast to Zafrank's garden, is a content you use when you're in your context, in your social flow. It's a photo on Instagram or a video on Facebook that you share because you're sharing it as a proxy for communication with your friends and with your group. And Nowness lives in the stream by publishing one unique exclusive film into that world every day of the year, across a multi-channel network. So by making really highly authored work and branded content that lives on a web platform and lives in that stream, we're trying to play both sides of the game. We take this direction one step further by also working in verticals that intersect with our series strands and that appeal to distinct interest groups and encourage audiences to explore both the films we're releasing at the time and also our archive. Those verticals quickly are art and design, fashion and beauty, music, food and travel, and culture. This is both creative and commercial in its approach because it aims to understand our market and involve audiences in a way that helps them tell themselves something about themselves and also to their friends. So then comes immersion. For us, working as a curator of acquired content as well as commissioned work, it's about seeking to expand our audience's horizons. We're creating rabbit holes of theme, of subject, and author that we hope our audience will tumble down, explore, and emerge out the other side and share again themselves to inspire others. When working at its best, this becomes a really virtuous circle. And we support that approach further with our Nowness picks, which look to celebrate the best of the rest of the web. It's showing that we're out there with our audience, trying to find the best storytelling wherever it is. And ultimately, all of these strands together mean that the central tenet of the Nowness strategy is that of constant refinement and readjustment. It's about the balance between commissioning and listening. It's work that has to live in a highly distributed media landscape. And to make that juggling act easier, we've developed 3 really purposely super simple commissioning criteria. It's everything that I've talked about in the most distilled form possible. And ultimately, for a Nowness film to work, it has to be something you can't see anywhere else, made in a way that you haven't seen before, that moves the audience. And there's a short final film to show you that in action.
I don't believe in style.
I dress with flair and panache. That's a great team, flair and panache.
Don't sit in that chair. No, that's not a chair. It's a work of art.
I don't really actually have any, arts.
That says creative director, don't mess with me.
Are you cuckoo? You are sick.
It's an obsession, because you're always obsessed.
But if people don't like it, it's their problem, not mine.
Don't be afraid to lose something. If you give, you improve.
I like when it changes. Makes me feel like I'm living.
So I've got 40 seconds left. I'd really love to take some questions, but finally, as fellow festival attendees, I've been watching and being inspired, and the last things I'd love to say to you is to take some risks. Let's try things together. Excite yourselves as well as your audiences. Communicate. Your audience will tell you what they think. Stop and look around once in a while. Think about the why, not just the what. And remember, nobody knows what the future will look like, even Miley Cyrus. And whatever comes now and next, it's best if we face it together. Keep exchanging knowledge at events like this, because after all, if we play together, we've got an amazing landscape to explore. Thank you for your time.